the deadlock at the far post. Ricci, careless from there. Austin Ricci, a bit of redemption.
Welcome back to the Canadian Premier League Newsroom, presented by Volkswagen. Charlie O'Connor-Clarke here. I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of these. Mitchell, I know you've held down the fort pretty well with AGR the last few weeks, but sorry to report that I am back in the chair here today. But the fun part is that we have a very, very interesting weekend of CPL games to break down. Obviously 4 across the league all weekend, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. We're going to get into all of them. Also, a quick shout out to Vancouver Whitecaps Girls Elite for winning the League One Canada Women's Interprovincial Championship yesterday. Tim Hortons Field. I was there. That was a lot of fun. Great final, winning on penalties over Montreal Outremont. Great weekend. Back to back. They're going to CONCACAF twice. They're actually starting the CONCACAF tournament they qualified for last year this Thursday. So they're going straight from Hamilton to El Salvador.
How very forge of them.
How very forge of them, yes. So that should be a very interesting competition to watch, see how a League One Canada team gets on against Alianza down in San Salvador. But we are here to talk about the Canadian Premier League, and there is a lot to talk about, and we're going to jump right into it, going in reverse chronological order, starting with last night's game in Winnipeg, because the biggest story in the CPL right now is first place York United FC. Mitch, they beat Valour FC 1-0. Thanks to Austin Ricci's goal, survive a penalty that Thomas Vincenzini saves on Sean Hundal. Mitch, York are in first place. I feel like that's where we have to start. What impressed you about them in this game, but also in the last few weeks to kind of rocket up the table like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time they've ended a match week in first place in Canadian Premier League history, which is a pretty incredible feat for them as a club, obviously. This is what's impressed me really more than anything is the mentality and then the execution of that mentality from this team. Obviously, they've talked about it for the past few weeks. This is where they want to be. They want to be leading the pack, but this is just part one in their plan, is just getting to the top spot. Now it's about holding on to that place. And, a draw would have been good enough to see them top of the table here in Winnipeg. They have the tiebreaker at the moment with Atlético Ottawa, but they felt this was a match to win, and you see them really on the road against the Valour side who was pressing and did have some quite good opportunities early in that second half. They go and make it an offensive substitution and bring off Max Ferrari and bring on Austin Ricci, who ultimately scores their winning goal. And, that moment also shows the versatility of that team, because you can have all of a sudden a guy like Juan Cordova, who's an elite fullback in this league, go back and play fullback in a moment like that. And, then you can just put Ricci up top, but fantastic for that. And Thomas Vincenzini, I mean, this was a masterclass from him in so many different ways. I mean, obviously he concedes the penalty, which is his low moment, but he makes up for it with his high moment of the game by saving said penalty. And, he was off his line consistently. York playing a bit of a higher line, and Valour trying to play over the top. And, anytime they did, Vincenzini was there to sweep up the danger on their goal. It's him recognizing an opportunity, rolling the ball out to Moba Booley to create that. After the game, Benjamin Mora said, sometimes it's the strikers who win us games. This time it was Vincenzini who helped us get 3 points. So they can win in different ways. But most importantly, again, winning is the focus, and they're making that clear. And that's why, they're picking up 3 points more often than not in a league where that's not happening all that much for a lot of other teams. That's why they're rocketing up the table.
Absolutely. And Vincent Senia, a player who you rightly named your player of the match, also rightly, spoiler alert, in the team of the week. A goalkeeper who maybe we haven't talked about as much, but has arguably been one of the best goalkeepers in the Canadian Premier League this year. But just one more on York in general, because I feel like we have to give them their due for climbing as far as they have into first place. Mitch, just we've both watched a lot of this team recently. Just what impresses you about the confidence they're playing with? I mean, Valour were actually previously the only team that had beaten them under Benjamin Mora. I'm pretty sure. They're now unbeaten in their last 6. This is a good result on the road, but they've been incredible at home recently. Just what feels different about this York team? And I guess the bigger question is, with 10 games left in the season, are they for real? Are they a genuine title contender?
No, I think they're absolutely for real. Again, it's just the consistency with which they've been able to, show these performances. Like even that 1-0 loss against Valour, the lone loss in the Benjamin Mora era so far. They were the better team on that day. They just finish in front of goal, but more often than not, they're creating so many opportunities. They bring in a guy like Jorge Guzman who can create even more opportunities now. Brian Wright, not only is he scoring, but he's top of the league in assists now too, with a lovely, little square to Austin Ricci moments after he'd almost set up Ricci for another goal. So this is the guy who's leading the line in, more ways than one. Moba Booley's back to his best. Like they have so many guys who are playing at the height of their powers. Almost everyone in this team is playing collectively and individually some of the best football we've seen them play in the Canadian Premier League. And again, they have that depth. When you can bring a guy like Austin Ricci off the bench, who I think has 4 goals now this season, like that's a luxury that very few teams in the league have. So they're deep. They're incredibly talented. They're obviously very well coached. And again, that belief, that's not something you can necessarily coach into a team. You kind of have to build on the results and performances and, have the players kind of prove to themselves that, we are capable of this. And very clearly, I think they are.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with individuals playing at the height of their powers. I mean, Brian Wright's probably playing the best football he's ever played in the Canadian Premier League. Moba Booley looks like the Moba Booley that we know a little bit more. Elijah Adekubi is playing some of his best football in the CPL, which I think is a surprise to some of us, considering the injuries he's dealt with. We maybe weren't sure if he was going to get up to that level again, but he certainly has. He's been incredible the last few weeks. And we could go on and on and on with a bunch of players on this York team that are genuinely just executing in a way that maybe they haven't over the last couple of years for this team. One York player who, again, maybe quietly has been executing very well, faced the media last night. That's Frank Stirring. Let's go back to Princess Auto Stadium and hear what the York defender had to say after this big win for them.
No, it feels amazing. Like we are working hard to achieve our objectives, and we come from far. When the coach came in, we were 6, and now we are first, so we are on a good way. But still, we have a lot of things to improve, and we have to stay humble because I know we are first now, but we still got like 10 games coming up. So we are excited, we are proud, and we are enjoying the moment. But at the same time, we stay humble and we keep working hard because that's what us got here in the first place. So. As I said, we are really happy and the way the position we are, but still a lot of things to improve, and we just keep humble and keep going.
Congratulations, obviously, to York. Quickly on Valour, Mitch. It's been an up and down few weeks for them. Obviously, beating Forge at home last weekend. This time, falling to York. What did you make of them and their performance in this game? Obviously, they had that penalty that they missed. Was there anything in particular that you'd be worried about from it?
Not a ton to be worried about. I mean, first and foremost, shout out to their fans. It was dog night at Princess Auto Stadium, and
yes,
it was absolutely electric. Their fans started chanting "Bad Dog" every time a York player got booked, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Incredible.
One of the fan moments of the season, absolutely. For the team though, on the pitch, I think it's really about just not letting this result derail what I think has been a really positive spell for them, where I think they found a system and a group of players who really fit that system incredibly well. And, I think they'll be disappointed in the way they concede that goal, because for most of the match, they actually did a really good job of keeping York to those outside channels. And, when you have center backs like Tasmo Kudus and Frankie Faccinari, you don't care if they're going to cross a million times into your box. Like, almost all those are getting cleared. So I thought they did a fantastic job of that. It's just, when they switch off in the 77th minute, commit too many players forward, like you can't afford moments like that. But, we've seen them tested in recent weeks against the top teams of the league. You mentioned they beat Forge. They tied Atlético Ottawa in Ottawa. They had a really good go of it with York on Sunday. This is a team that's becoming increasingly really difficult to defeat over the back half of the season. Again, teams are going to travel into Winnipeg. They're going to be tired coming in. So for Valour, it's just about, continuing to take pride in outworking their opposition on their home field and then staying switched on for 90 minutes. But if they can do that, again, I think they're starting to find a really good system that is starting to get the best out of this group of players. And, again, they're going to be a really tricky fixture over the last few months of the season.
Always happen. Valour, they take on Halifax next weekend. They're 6 points out of the playoffs, so that's going to be a big one for them. Moving on, we're going to stay on Sunday, and we're going to go further west, actually. We're going to go out to Langley because Vancouver FC hosted Pacific FC in, I believe, the third Sailor C derby of this season. And this is actually going to be a game where we get to rest our voices a little bit, Mitchell, because both sides had some thoughts after this one, and we're going to have to get to that very soon. But as we roll the highlights here, Vancouver FC 1, Pacific 0, the goal coming from a pretty great, actually, finish from Alejandro Diaz, an outstanding cross from Paris G as well to get it to him in front of goal. And for the third time this year, Vancouver FC victorious over their provincial rivals. What's that, 7 in a row in total now? Something like that?
I think it's 5.
5. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense because they lost. I don't think that Vancouver have lost to Pacific since the second time they saw them. So this would be 5. Yeah. Yeah, Pacific won the first 2. Vancouver have won all 5.
We're back to
there we go.
Math on the show.
We're doing math on the fly. I'm glad that our faces aren't on screen right now. You would have seen my eyes just, darting back and forth trying to do that math, but we got it. Anyway, Vancouver FC with another win over Pacific. I think we actually should probably start with Pacific here, Mitch, because I feel like they're a very frustrated team at the moment. Out of the playoffs, now 3 points back of Vancouver after this game. We're going to hear what James Merriman had to say about them, but what is concerning about this Pacific FC team at the moment, because they are not in a great way.
No, I mean, it's been the same old story really for Pacific for months now. Again, probably the better team on Sunday in terms of the bulk of the chances they create, but there's just not a single player on this team who's confident in front of goal right now. Like you look at their opponents in this game with Alejandro Diaz and basically every other Canadian Premier League team right now, like there's an offensive game breaker. For those top teams, we just talked about York and we threw out a bunch of names, Ottawa Forge. Yeah. There's multiple. There's not really one player on this Pacific team right now offensively that you can point to as a game changer for them. And, it just feels like something needs to be shaken up significantly or this team's going to end up 1-0 losing their way, further and further below that playoff line.
Yeah. This is a team that scored 14 goals in 17 games. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's not good enough.
Yeah, no.
They've lost 3 of their last 4, 5 of their last 7. They've scored 4 goals in that 7-game stretch.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Vancouver FC's last 3 wins have come against Pacific FC. Like they're also keeping their local rival, like above the playoff line right now, quite literally. So that's just like another injury stat, I guess. I mean, yeah, if Vancouver makes the playoffs and Pacifics don't, it may very largely be down to these games between them, right? And that's going to hurt Pacific a lot. It's got to hurt to have, clearly have the lower hand in this rivalry. Vancouver, the newer team, new kids on the block, come in and Pacific beat them up the first 2 times they've ever seen them, and they haven't since. That has to be very frustrating on Vancouver Island. Let's go to Langley now and see what James Merriman had to say, because he is not a happy man at this moment.
Win ugly or continue to play the way that we want to play. decision to go to goal that you need to make at a certain moment in certain areas of the field. Decisions to take 2v1s, to create situations, to drive to goal. That's a decision we need to make. And okay, if we set back on a counterattack and win ugly by driving balls in the box, we still need desire, we still need intensity in front of goal to score the goal, to be ready. And we don't have that right now. So whichever way we want to change the tactical situation, we need players in the higher areas to be more aggressive and to go to goal. And us as a team, collectively, it's not enough. You know, it's not enough. It's my job as the manager, for sure, to demand more in terms of the intensity, to drive forward, to go forward. But I can promise you, we're saying it day in, day out, to go forward, to attack, to look to be dangerous and put ourselves in a situation, be alive in front of goal. And we're not doing it. We say it at halftime, we start the second half, we're not doing it. So we need to look at the players that we have. We need to continue to demand more from ourselves. The only way I see is continue to work. You know, nobody's playing us off this field. Nobody's not one game we're getting played off the field other than the Valour match at home, which is a big disappointing loss for us. But you can go back across the games. We're not getting played off the field. We're making clear decisions not to go to goal. It's not enough from us.
Bold words, clear decisions not to go to goal. That's got to be frustrating for a coach, especially if that is, you know, an instruction in training and tactical sessions to put the ball in those areas and it's just not getting there. Players aren't making those decisions. But also, you know, tactics aside, decision making aside, we know that there's been some frustration among the players as well, just in terms of effort level, because Thomas Meyer-Jaguar spoke after this game as well, and likewise was frustrated. So let's see his thoughts as well.
I don't think it's necessarily difficult, because honestly, from my perspective in that game, it was easy for us. Honestly, it looked like we were playing, everything was fine, but their energy of a derby, they have it. They have it, we don't. They show up, they want to fight, elbow in the face and stuff. I don't think they have the same quality as we bring, but their fight is 20 times better than us. So that's what is missing for sure. And I think it's good for them. They're able to show up for a derby and to set intensity that we haven't done in 5 games. I think, I don't want to say anything crazy, but I think every goal at the end of the game that we conceded was a stupid mistake. And don't even need to do it. We could just play simple. So it's mental. It's mental.
What did he say? He said, I don't think that they have more quality, but their fight is 20 times higher than Pacific's. Mitch, if you're a player in a Pacific locker room, you hear that. Just what are you thinking right now about how frustrating these losses have been?
Yeah, I think there has to be a pretty clear response to that. And yeah, again, it's just hasn't been good enough from them on so many different levels, and it is hard. Like again, when you feel like you aren't going to score in these games, and it's been so many weeks like that, like it is hard to keep up that intensity and that momentum over the course of games and weeks. But again, this is a really, really critical month for this team. And we know what's coming at the end of the month in terms of the Canadian Championship. But even regardless, like the fixtures are coming quick and fast and they're against top teams. And, you know, this is really an opportunity for them to get themselves back in that playoff picture. And really, they're just not taking it at all right now. And you know, not coming close to the level that they need to get above that line. So, it seems like we've had a couple of these soul searching moments with Pacific in recent years, but last year it was about them falling out of the top spot. Now it's about them falling out of the playoffs altogether, and the desperation that needs to come with that set of circumstances is significantly higher.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen what Pacific have been able to do in, you know, games like playoff games like the Canadian Championship. I think they went farther in the playoffs last year than it might have looked like they would, given their form going in. They're in the semifinals of the Canadian Championship, but they have to get to the playoffs. And right now, that is looking like a bit of a challenge. Good on TMG, I think, wearing the captain's armband there in the clip to come out and say something quite brutally honest like that. But this is a team that hosts Atlético Ottawa next weekend. That is an absolutely enormous game for both of these teams. Genuinely could be a pivot point in either season. So both teams desperate for a result in that one. But let's go to Vancouver here, because they are also a story, winning again over Pacific. Alejandro Diaz, another goal, I think his 8th of the Canadian Premier League season. That puts him in a tie for second place in the Golden Boot race. Mitch, what did you like about Vancouver in this game? And is it just kind of that one moment that helped them get over the line here?
I mean, yeah, you talk about going to goal. There's a player on Vancouver who is absolutely doing that right now for them. And 5 goals in the last 7 games. And really, since that loan got solidified and extended, the confidence we've seen Alejandro Diaz playing at has been immense. And, the 2 games in the last 7 where he hasn't scored, no one has on this Vancouver team. So he's that critical to them right now. And again, that's really the difference in a game like this, is when you have a player like that who can consistently find the net. It's going to be a game changer for them. This was a game that they just really needed to win. Like they needed to break that poor run of form in general, but especially at home and especially against their rivals. Like now they haven't dipped below the playoff line all season, which is a milestone for a club in the second year. But now it's about maintaining that. But results like this are obviously going to go a huge way towards doing that.
Absolutely. And certainly Vancouver at a point this late in the season where missing the playoffs would probably be a disappointment. And again, results like these are the ones that might help them stay above that line. And as you say, you might not be playing their best football. Things might not all be going particularly well for them. But when you've got someone like Diaz who can find that moment, Paris G to Diaz to score the goal, and then you defend well enough, that is how sometimes you get those results. That's sometimes how you get into the playoffs with games like that. We know in the Canadian Premier League, pretty much any team can beat any team on any given day. We know what the parity is like. And Afshin Ghotbi, the coach of Vancouver FC, was quick to point that out after the game as well. So let's hear the thoughts of the winning manager from this game.
I think there's different answers for your question. First and foremost, when you see the table so tight and you see on any given day, in any given month, a team can have a run and go from bottom to top and from top to bottom, it just shows how wonderful CPL is, the parity within the league, and how important it is for players to develop the professionalism off the field to bring these consistent professional performances on the field. So I think that's the challenge for our players, and I think players of all the other teams, because a team like Ottawa, it's impossible. 3 games, 9 goals against. They dropped 3 games in a row, 2 at home. And that's a team that's literally loaded by incredible players and talent from back to the front and on the bench. And all of a sudden, Carlos goes from being the coach of the month, and then all of a sudden he's the worst coach of the month. I mean, that's our league, and we need to kind of create a more professional mindset from everyone within a team, on and off the field, players, staff, so we can create the process necessary, the standard necessary, the culture necessary to have more consistency in performance and results.
Afshin, giving us the segue we're looking for, mentioning Carlos, because we are going to Hamilton next. Forge FC 3, Atlético Ottawa 0. Mitchell, that's 3 losses in a row for Atlético Ottawa. Forge moving up to just 1 point behind Ottawa. They were in second place until York took that win and took the top of the table. But Mitch, this was a pretty comprehensive Forge performance, I think. Ottawa obviously coming in maybe a little lower on confidence despite being in first place. Forge take advantage. It's a game where they don't have much of the ball, actually. I think it was somewhere around 40% possession for Forge, which is a little unusual for them, but clearly I think part of the plan. They kind of give Ottawa the ball most of the game, invite them to try and attack, and then Forge hitting in transition. Tristan Borges with 2 goals for Forge, playing some outstanding football, getting on the end of a couple of second balls. Let's start with Forge, Mitch. They continue to do Forge things at opportune times. They play some of the best football in the league when they're on their day. What is impressive about the way they approach a game like this against the first place team and come out pretty convincing winners?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see a bit of a different way that they can play even at home in terms of this kind of counterattacking football against teams like Halifax and Ottawa, who they know want to hold on to the ball a little bit more. And they're willing to give up possession a little bit, again, even at Tim Hortons Field, because they know that when they win the ball back, they have guys like Borges and Mpoma and Poku and Chouanier and Para, who, if you can get these players running into space, again, they've done most of their incredible operating this season in those tight spaces. So when they've got acres of space in front of them and they can run forward and, send passes, it's in that chaos and scrambling backlines for other teams that they're going to really create opportunities like they did again in this game. So it's a really good weapon, I think, for them to have in their arsenal and to be comfortable playing in this way, especially again with Toronto FC coming up. This is a style of football that I think would be really conducive to success at BMO Field at the end of the month. So obviously another weapon that they have in their arsenal, and it had been a bit of a quiet stretch for Tristan Borges, and now again he's back to being in that player of the year conversation. I think scored last week, had 2 in this game, easily could have had more. And I think critically for Forge as well, getting a clean sheet. They haven't done that a lot recently. I think that was just 1 in their last 9 matches coming into this one. So again, if you're Forge, this was not only a statement, but they put an exclamation mark on it too, for them in terms of their performance.
An exclamation mark on it. I like that.
It was good. A statement.
That's a good line. Did you have that one prepared? Because that was a good one.
No, I didn't actually.
I saw off the dome. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. All right. He does it for free.
What I do?
No, you don't. Anyway, sticking with Forge just quickly, Tristan Borges in particular, shout out him. He reclaims into a tie for being Forge's all-time leading goal scorer in all competitions. He, I believe, his 32nd goal for Forge on Saturday night brings him back into a tie with Woobens Passius. Obviously, a record that he gave up to Woobens in the first place as the league's inaugural Golden Boot scorer winner, but kind of indicative of the resurgence that Borges has had in this season, especially to kind of return to his powers and the height of his powers. When Tristan spoke to the media after the game, he didn't know that. He wasn't aware of that record, so I let him know. And here's what he had to say after the game.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know that. A lot of memories, obviously. A lot of great memories at this club. It's been able to provide me with a platform for myself to showcase what I can do. For every year, to be honest with you, I've taken all the good, all the bad, and just learned from it as I keep growing older and older. For me, it's since day one, since the day I got here, it's always been about winning, and it always will be. If I can get on the score sheet, whether it's a goal or assist, obviously it's a positive, but for me, it's always been about winning, and it always will be. It's obviously something special to be a part of, and I hope more come. But if we keep playing like this, I think the results will go.
All right, on Ottawa, as I said, lost 3 games in a row. Carlos Gonzalez said after the game that the biggest problem was the defensive side of the game. And they've conceded 11 goals in their last 4 games, including 3 to Forge, 4 to York 2 weeks before that. What is the problem with this Ottawa team at the moment that you're seeing, and how concerned are you that they might not be able to get back to the level they were a couple of months ago?
It's the defense. No, in all honesty, I think it's all interconnected, right? Like, I think these defensive struggles a little bit have been going on for a little while, but in their last game against Forge, they scored their way out of those problems, and they had been doing that a little bit in the last little bit. Where you look at a game like Valour, where they concede a couple of goals and they don't play great defensively, but obviously they take a few chances and they get a draw out of that. Like, it's been going on for multiple weeks for this team defense that started the season and had so many players, chipping in and willing to put in the hard yards. Now you still see examples of that, like Matteo De Brienne getting all the way back to make an incredible challenge that I think deserves to be shouted out, even if it came in a losing effort. That's the tackle of the season in the Canadian Premier League. Like, you're not seeing enough of those, and you're seeing him have to make plays like that because other players are switching off and not putting in those hard yards further up the field as well. And again, when you're not scoring at the same rate and not looking nearly as dangerous offensively, I mean, they barely threatened Forge all game long.
Yeah.
Then if you're Forge, that gives you the confidence and emboldens you to, okay, we can maybe risk a little bit more going forward and attacking this team, because it doesn't seem like they're going to hurt us at all. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of frustration right now, and this has to be a wake-up call. Like, again, as much as they've been struggling, they were the top dogs in the Canadian Premier League. They were that #1 seed. And now that they drop out of that position, maybe this is the wake-up call that they need to get back on track and start playing with a bit more urgency.
It certainly might be. But yeah, this is a game, 60% possession. They somehow had 11 shots. I don't know where they came from, because they had 0.24 expected goals from 11 shots. That is not indicative of quality of the shots they were taking. And again, just didn't, no matter how much they had the ball, it just didn't feel like they ever had it in a particularly threatening area. Just Forge didn't seem very afraid of Ottawa having the ball in this game, which I think is another frustration. But again, as we mentioned earlier, Ottawa on to play Pacific next weekend. Cannot overstate how big a game that is. All right, on to the first game of the weekend, the final game we're going to talk about on this show. Cavalry FC winning their third game in a row over the Halifax Wanderers, 3-2. Cavalry didn't have the start to the season they wanted. The first half of the season, a little bit frustrating for them, but the hottest team in the league right now, arguably, maybe them and York. Cavalry unbeaten in 4, winning in their last 3 games, including this one at home. The vibe has shifted, and it seems like things are a little bit more positive in Calgary, right, Mitchell?
Oh, for sure. And you see the difference that it makes when they get so many other important players back. Like, obviously, last week we saw one aspect of Ali Musi's return and him scoring 2 incredible goals and that side of his play. But we see him return this week, and that connection he has with Dan Klomp obviously manifests itself on the first goal. And with Musi back, all of a sudden, a guy like Fraser Aird has a little bit more space to operate down that right flank. We've seen some of the magic he's created down that side all season, and he does so again in this game. On Klomp, a player who's been outstanding again for them this season on the defensive side of the ball and really leading that league best back line. But of course, the way football discourse works sometimes, I feel like we're only starting to talk about him now because he's scoring goals and gets a birthday brace in this one. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that, again, they're getting their players back, and we've talked about the bounces that they maybe haven't gotten. Again, they hit the woodwork again in this game, and that's 12 times in 18 matches, which is just an absurd amount for any team. But eventually it's going to start to turn, and we definitely see that on Cale Lowry kind of inadvertently putting a ball in his own net on, a miss hit from can't remember who exactly mishit that, but anyway, Cavalry getting I think it's Volling, mishit it across goal. But when you get the ball consistently into those areas, that's bound to happen, and it's something Cavalry's been excellent at doing this season. And again, 3 wins on the trot. Here come the Cavalry.
Yeah, this felt much more like Cavalry. It felt much more back to normal. Just to see Ali Musi putting a corner on Dan Klomp's head.
Yeah,
scoring from set pieces.
And nature, that's a nature is healing moment at
exactly. They're back. They're back. All is forgiven for Cavalry, I think. Just definitely things seem to be pointing up a lot more than they were even a couple of weeks ago. Certainly more than they were a month ago. They're in 4th place technically, but only 4 points off the top of the table. They're very, very much in that title race, as was pointed out, of course, by their coach, Tommy Wilton Jr., who was in top form after the game with his metaphors and quotes. So let's go back to Calgary and let's hear what Tommy had to say.
Yeah, I think we're experienced in this before, because I referenced last year to the guys when things weren't going our way. We were once upon a time 11 points behind Pacific. And it's never, and we're seeing this with the Olympics, it's never how you start the race, it's how you finish it. And if there's anything to look at with the Canadian 4x100 metres, they finished it strong ahead of more fancy teams. So the doubt that was out there, fair enough, but there was context to that doubt in terms of the missing pieces. You look, when you put Mile Henry on the pitch and you put Ali Musi on the pitch, these guys can entertain. So it allows Tobias to do his thing. It allows our players to do their thing. So nice to get healthy bodies back, and we're still without two of our leaders in Sergio Camargo and Charlie Trafford. So I'm confident the run-in is right where we want to be.
Certainly right where they want to be. Not right where they want to be are the Halifax Wanderers. They're the 8th and final team we need to talk about on this show. They stay in it with Cavalry. They score that equalizer right after the opening goal, but again, not quite the performance that they were looking for. Mitchell, what maybe concerned you about this Wanderers performance? What do you think they're kind of taking away from this game?
Yeah, I think if there is a positive for them, it's pretty clear that they're, under 21 minutes or where their under 21 minutes are going to come from now. Coimbra has been really good at leading the line in recent weeks, and, he scores again. Jefferson Alphonse looks like a real find for them at the back, and, is certainly going to push Dan Emick and Cavalry for minutes, or maybe play alongside them in a back three as they did later on. And Jan Fillion is going to miss a game now for the first time in since certainly his CPL career, and under Patrice Geyser is, he's got yellow card accumulation. So we're going to get to see Aiden Rushinis probably, I think on Wednesday against Forge. But I think aerial defending is a bit of a concern right now. We've seen multiple goals, certainly in this game. Obviously, a guy like Dan Klomp, always difficult to defend, but a little too open on multiple occasions in this game. And we can look back weeks in terms of how they've been conceding their goals. I think you were at York Lions Stadium when Marky Wojciechowski was absolutely wide open at the back post to nod one past Fillion. Like, that's been a bit of an issue. And just 3 away wins in 22 road matches now under Patrice Geyser. And last year you had that home record to fall back on, but this year they don't really. So they need to really start winning regardless of where these matches are being played. And that's going to be the big challenge for them over the back half of this season. And the tests don't get any easier. They're going to Hamilton to take on Forge, who are the best home team in the league right now, midweek, and then they've got to go to Winnipeg. So huge week coming up for the Wanderers, and I think one where we're really going to find out a lot about where this team is in 2024.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a big road trip for them. Obviously, that Wednesday game, I think the rescheduled one from what was originally going to be the school day game back in May. This will maybe sort out the table a little bit as well, because obviously Halifax have 2 games in hand on most of the league, and Forge have 1. So it'll help adjust things a little bit there. But a very, very, very important game for Halifax, especially. They've played well against Forge at times. They've certainly played well against them at home when they've played them, but Tim Hortons Field is a bit of a different animal. And as you mentioned, Wanderers have not been very good away from home.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever won at Tim Hortons Field still. Pretty confident.
I believe that. Well, Wednesday would be an excellent time for them to start.
Absolutely.
For them, obviously, sitting at the bottom of the table, 4 points back of Pacific, 7 points back of Vancouver. This is a team that certainly has the ability to get back into that picture, especially with, just having 16 games played compared to the 18 that most of the teams in the playoffs have, but they have to start now. It's not getting any easier, as you mentioned. Anyway, that is our 4 matches in the Canadian Premier League over match week 18, I believe. Let's take one last look at the standings before we wrap up here, because York United fans, you're going to want to take a look at this one for a long time, because for the first time, York are in first place on 31 points with 9 wins, just ahead of second place Atlético Ottawa on 29, Forge on 28, Cavalry at 27, and then a couple points back, 4 points back, rounding out the playoff picture is Vancouver FC with 23 points. Just behind them, as we mentioned earlier, their fellow BC side, Pacific FC, in 6th place on 20. Valour 3 points back of them on 17. And then last but not least, the Halifax Wanderers, 16 points, still very much alive, but kind of slipping from the pack. They need to start picking up those points very quickly. As we mentioned, they will have, as we mentioned, an opportunity to start doing that on Wednesday at Tim Hortons Field against Forge, 7 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Atlantic on Wednesday night, followed by a full slate of games on the weekend, starting Friday night at York Lions Stadium as they host Cavalry 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Mountain. Saturday afternoon has a doubleheader in Winnipeg. Valour taking on Halifax at 2 Central, 4 Atlantic. Pacific hosting Atlético Ottawa later that afternoon, 3 o'clock local time, 6 o'clock Eastern if you're in Ottawa. And then finally, our Tony Bet match of the week on Sunday is Vancouver FC hosting Forge FC in what should be a pretty interesting game, kicking off at 4 o'clock local at Willoughby Community Park. All 4 games, as always, live on OneSoccer. If you're in town, though, you should get your tickets. Go to any of those games. They'll all be great ones. If not, make sure you follow along, as we will be on OneSoccer. And then we will be back on the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen next Monday to discuss all 4 of those games, plus probably the Halifax Forge game on Wednesday. We'll see how different the table looks. We'll see if York can hang on to first place. It should be a lot of fun this weekend. So thank you very, very much for joining us. Thank you, Mitchell, for providing your wisdom and expertise that I lack.
I don't know if I
thank you
did
very
that.
much, obviously. Well, I'm feeling generous today. Thank you very much to Volkswagen for sponsoring it. And again, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.
And Alejandro Diaz breaks the deadlock.